to what's in store for the next season. The head coach of Raging Cajuns football, Michael Lotief.
Well, the best way to start is basically acknowledging how proud I am of my softball team and my players. You know, those kids are fighters, and they laid it on the line. And you know, when your season ends, and it ends really when you're so close, and it ends when the margin of error is so thin, you have a range of emotions, and our kids went through all of those emotions. They went through disappointment and sting, and you know, it's all of that. But as you kind of walk away from it and you give it some perspective, you also realize that on this journey that these kids overcame a lot of struggle and a lot of obstacles. And one of my favorite quotes, you know, I printed it out and it sits on my desk, is from Theodore Roosevelt. And it's the man in the arena, but in this case it's the woman in the arena, right? And he says, it's not the critic who counts. It's not the man, and in this case the woman, who points out how the strong woman stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. No, the credit belongs to the woman who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there's no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends herself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if she fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that her place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. You know, and I think that sums it up, that these kids, they really did strive to do the deeds, they really did dare greatly, and they did it with great enthusiasm and great devotion. And for that, I'm proud of them.
I know you came up short in the game 3, but just for your team's ability to respond in game 2, how big was that?
Well, if you look at the history of postseason, we knew that game 2 was going to be Jordan's best performance. So in the Sun Belt tournament, she struggled a little bit in game 1 against FIU, but in game 2 against South Al was her best. And then in the regional in Baton Rouge, she struggled game 1 against Northwestern, but game 2 against LSU, she was lights out. And then in the super regional, it held true. In game 1, she wasn't at her best. She struggled a little bit, but in game 2, she was at her best. And she was lights out. And we knew game 2 was going to be ours. I mean, we knew that. And we liked the matchup, and we knew that we were going to get it done. And we knew that it was going to come down to a game 3. Really, in both of those games, like I just read in the quote, if you go back and you really look at those 2 games, game 1 and game 3, it just came down to a play or a call or an at bat or a pitch. And as fans, and even as people that are in the contest, you could look at anything you want, and you could say, this one little thing would have made the difference. You can pick out whichever one you want to pick out. And in our case, I challenge our kids to accept responsibility, to go pick out some things that you could have personally done better that could have turned the tide and made the difference. But I also want to caution people out there to say that these kids did a lot of things right to put themselves in the position to win. So you can't just do it theoretically and say, well, if you would have done this, then you would have won. Well, they had to do a lot of things right to put themselves in that position. And that's the way I'm going to look at it.
You mentioned kind of in your quote with President Roosevelt about fighting and about being in the arena. Considering, like you mentioned, what this team went through during the season, are you surprised that the team ultimately did get this far?
No, I'm not surprised. I mean, when we were in that little funk where we lost 9 of 13, and you saw them come out of it, then you knew that adversity was going to make us better. Look, a lot of people keep talking about what this team went through, et cetera, et cetera. The path that this team went through is the reason why we got where we got. The path that we went through made us stronger, it made us closer, it made us more resolved. It's the reason why they fought. It molded them, and it's the reason why we got where we got. That's what I believe.
And kind of talking about Jordan, I remember when the team was going through the funk, you kind of likened her to Brooke Mitchell, having that tough year, coming back that next season. It seemed like she made that progression a little bit quicker, maybe than Mitchell, especially during this postseason of how she was able to do. What do you think is the next step for Jordan in her progression and towards her junior season? And also, off of that, how important is it to get a number 2 for next season?
Well, the first thing is Mitchell's sophomore year was phenomenal, from what I remember.
It might have been her freshman year to her sophomore year. When you talked about the progression of Brooke, she had a little tough fall, and then came back a little bit stronger. That's the thing.
Yeah, but her sophomore year there's a lot of parallels between what Brooke did her sophomore year and how Jordan finished up this year. Jordan, the past couple months has been phenomenal. I mean, she really has been phenomenal, and that's what you need to make the run. Is you gotta have a hot pitcher, and you have to have a pitcher that's a warrior and that's consistent, and she did it. And we kind of married that with a core group of seniors who had this will to win. And I mean, Draham this postseason was phenomenal. It was phenomenal. I mean, she just was lights out. And then Brianna, wow. I mean, clutch hit after clutch hit in big moments. And Maddie Hack, I mean, Maddie came up in some big moments over and over and over. And then, of course, everybody knows about Narissa and her competitive fire and how she competed. I mean, those core group of seniors just kind of laid it on the line. You know, we were just a little short, and putting together a group that could just keep grinding it out. But I like where Jordan finished up. You know, I've already had my exit interview with her, and she understands that there's still more potential in front of her, and that she can still even be better. Just to let y'all know, I don't know if this is public knowledge yet or not, but she got an invite to the U.S. national trials, which she deserves. And she also understands that there are things that she has to continue to do to continue to develop. I mean, you realize that Jordan is an at-large selection in our own conference, with both of the pitchers in front of her coming back. So she's still got to get better within our own conference in order to do some of the things that she wants to be able to get done. In terms of developing another pitcher, I mean, we worked on that every day. I mean, and it's something that I talk about all the time, is that you can't short circuit the process. And I liken it to NFL quarterbacks. And all of these teams keep drafting these quarterbacks, and they spend all this money on their development, and they hire the best coaches to develop them, and then in 3 or 4 years they're cutting them and drafting another #1 pick. So it's not that easy. It's not easy. It's not an easy process. There's no surefire way to do it. How important is it to continue to develop not only #2 pitchers, but players who can be successful at this level? And that's what it's all about. And for every Jordan Wallace that gets developed, there are other kids that never get there. And people think it's as simple as hold the ball like this and step right here and spin it, and that's not really the way that it works. I mean, at 13 years, there's been one Brooke Mitchell. And now, 13 years later, you have a kid that's starting to match or get similar results as she got. But we've tried over and over and over and over and over. And it's just a process, and it's something that you have to work at every day. In this way, all those kids have the potential to do it at that level. They do. And we just have to stay persistent, and we just have to continue to work the process. And if we can develop other kids behind her that can either challenge her or exceed what she's doing, then that would be good for our program. Trust me, we're trying to develop other pitchers, and not #2s. 1A. You know, pitchers that can do it in combination.